Glenn Greenwald, one of the 7 journalists, I believe I said there were 7 journalists left. I may be exaggerating that number, but you're one of them. Thank you for talking to us. I appreciate it. From your beautiful mountainside casita in, I don't know, in Brazil. I'm unsure. I wanted to.
That's so multilingual.
Yeah. Well, I try. I wanted to talk to you. First, kind of a broad general question. Are you surprised at how controversial you've become over the last 12 months? Is it shocking to you how many people are angry at you and how often they're angry?
Not exactly. I mean, I do tend to have a very slightly polarizing personality, and it's kind of been that way for a long time. So making people angry isn't totally new to me. I've been doing that more or less since I started writing about politics, and even before when I was practicing law in Manhattan, and even before that when I was just an obnoxious kid. But I think what has happened is because of this perception, it's not the reality, but the perception that I have removed myself from one faction and placed myself into another, what generally inspires the most intense anger and hatred are not people who are just against you from the start, but people who you believe have become traitors to the cause or heretics to the religion. And there's a lot of people who are looking at me that way and are really angry. It's kind of like a sense of betrayal. And I think that's part of what is being generated there. But I also think it's, I mean, I don't want to act like I'm some innocent victim. I mean, I also, especially since I left The Intercept and found this kind of, complete freedom and independence, have been waging my own little war on the dominant sector of the media. And it's only natural to expect that they're going to wage war back on me. So I feel like it's kind of a two-sided battle, and it's not just me standing there all alone and innocent being, attacked.
What, in your estimation, has changed? The media held a lot of water for George W. Bush. Well, can you kill them? I'm kidding. I mean, animals are so, I know he loves dogs, but it's just, it's amazing. These people with the dogs all the time, dogs and cats.
You have to take it on the right way, Tim. They're as excited as I am about your show. I was actually supposed to be on Rogan tomorrow, and I had to cancel that.
Who's that?
They're a little upset about that as well.
Who is that? Does he have a podcast?
Go ahead.
Anyway, Rogan. Oh yeah, the guy for Fear Factor. Anyway. What has happened in your estimation with mainstream media? Because they did hold a lot of water for George W. Bush. They seem to always covet their position, coddling people in power. This is my view of it as a comedian. And I look at them and I say they like to be close to power. They depend on scoops, and they depend on access for stories. And I've watched, it's amazing. In my own short, little meaningless life, I have watched Ann Coulter go from let's invade their countries, kill their leaders, and convert them to Christianity to we shouldn't be doing anything. We have to be America first and take care of our own. And I've watched Rachel Maddow go from we should not be, using the military as a tool of foreign intervention to we need to be using the military. It's everybody's flip-flop. Values seem to mean nothing. And the only thing that seems to matter is this raw lust for viewers or for power. What has changed in this last, 5 years?
So the attribute of the media that you identified at the start of that question, which was this kind of deference to power, has been there for a long time. It's probably more than anything else what caused me to stop practicing law and start writing about politics in 2005 was my observation that the media had become extremely deferential to Bush and Cheney and the war on terror. As you said, it was a bipartisan war on terror. There was very little dissent tolerated, no questioning, and there were all these kind of vital issues, especially attacks on civil liberties, being waged in the name of fighting terrorism that I thought were very disturbing and grave that very few people were covering. And I started writing about politics in order to do that, and noticed, of course, that the media was deferential to the CIA, the security state. That goes back to the Cold War as well. So I still think that's a huge pathology in media, but I don't think it's new. think what's new is what happened during the Trump years, which is in a lot of ways, Donald Trump just broke the brains of huge sectors of American society. Think about it. If you actually believe and you tell yourself every day, and the people that you work with and listen to and who are around you are also affirming this list of really disturbing conspiracies, like the Kremlin has taken over the United States and is controlling the levers of power using sexual and financial blackmail over the White House, that Donald Trump is like this Hitlerian figure who's ushering in fascism and is an existential threat to America. If you actually start believing all those things and saying them every day, you're going to go fucking crazy. And not only are you going to go fucking crazy, but you're going to start to conclude that a whole variety of things that previously were unthinkable to you because they're unethical or way outside of what the role is of the profession that you've chosen now become not only acceptable, but urgent. So the idea that you have to do anything and say anything in order to stop this uniquely insidious figure, you have to align with the CIA and the FBI and the NSA, the agencies devoted to killing Donald Trump. You have to, or undermining Donald Trump, you have to reunite with the neocons and Bush Cheney scumbags because they're also against Donald Trump. It radically reshaped the worldview of financial elites, media elites, political elites, and Donald Trump became this singular figure through which everybody or almost everybody understood the world. And that's what I think accounts for those reversals that you were just alluding to.
What about Trump was, if Jeb Bush had won, I don't think we would have had this. So what about Trump was the catalyst for such a widespread mental breakdown? Was it that he was vulgar and crass? Was it that so many people had told themselves he wasn't going to win? Was it that he defeated potentially the first woman president? What about him specifically sent people down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, so I think it was all of those things that you just mentioned, but I do think the primary one is that just comportmentally, Trump was such a radical deviation from what we've come to expect from the face of American power. If you actually look at what the Trump administration did, there's almost nothing that it did that is radical from the perspective of the American political tradition. There was very little convergence between the things he was saying and tweeting that made people so upset and the things that the United States government was actually doing, because the whole point of the US government in the post-World War II order is to function outside of the constraints of democratic accountability. They've insulated themselves from elections. It doesn't matter who wins. There's no way to change who they are unless you devote yourself in a kind of very devoted warlike fashion to undermining them, which is way beyond Trump's competence or desire. He, had the attention span of a gnat. He was, interested in using the office just to vindicate petty personal grievances, not to radically transform the country, which had its value. But so, yeah, I think it was what American presidents really are expected to do more than anything is to be a deceitful, prettifying symbol on the horrors of American power, American capitalism, and American imperialism. They're supposed to be these erudite, lofty, noble figures like Obama and even like Bush was, and he's evangelical incarnation, to put a pretty face on what the United States is. And Trump not only was incapable of doing that, he's just a vulgarian, right? He's spent his life in, as a billionaire or a quasi-billionaire.
He's a
thrice married. New York.
He's a thrice married gambling tycoon. I mean, this is not the person you'd want representing your team.
Right. But not only did he have no ability to do it, but he also had no desire to do it. I think one of the most telling moments was early on, he did an interview with Bill O'Reilly on Fox, and Bill O'Reilly said, "You seem really positive and enthusiastic about Putin. How can you feel so positive about Putin when he kills journalists and dissidents?" And Trump said, "What, you don't think we have our own killers?
People here too." Yeah, his quote, "We kill a lot of people here too." Yeah.
Right. And as usual, the thing that makes everybody angriest is when you tell the forbidden truth.
Right.
Everybody knows that that's true.
Right.
But the American president is the last person who's supposed to say that, right? They're supposed to uphold images of American exceptionalism. So I think it was just the upset that he just kind of like defecated on the White House. He like vandalized the noble corridors of power that stand for American exceptionalism. And I think that more than anything is what got them so upset, along with the uncertainty that, it kind of fucked with everybody's expectations. The New York Times was saying there was a 97% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to be elected. She's like a, inside member of the royal court and has been for decades. There was the historical aspect of the first woman president, all those other things you said that also caused it. But he was just such an unpredictable tornado, sweeping through Washington, where their power and their certainty and their money and their livelihoods are all based, that it was just like an earthquake that never stopped. Why it upset them?
Why didn't they kill him, right? Because they killed JFK. They kill certain people. Certain people they don't kill, they control. Why would they not, in this case, kill him? I mean, maybe they can't anymore. In the 60s, they used to kill everybody. Now they, I mean, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. I mean, you can go through them, right? Malcolm X. I mean, they just kill a lot of people, right? Now, I guess they couldn't do that in this case. He won the presidency. So do you think when you had James Brennan and Clapper and all these people that were working to, undermine his presidency seemingly from before he was even inaugurated, do you think, would you say that was sort of a, am I going too far to say that was kind of a soft coup? Were they trying to manufacture intelligence that got the president impeached and potentially removed? Was this based on anything real? Was it paranoia? I mean, I read the Steele dossier and I've read some of Jane Mayer's reporting, and I used to like Jane Mayer a lot. Like, she wrote a great book about torture called The Dark Side. And I think she's written some really good stuff. She wrote about the Koch family, but some of her reporting on the Russia stuff seemed a little paranoid. What do you think that was? When you look at Russiagate, you look at the inception of it, where did it come from? Is this paranoia, or was this a coordinated attempt to remove a guy who was elected from office?
Well, it's interesting. We're taping this on the 50th birthday of Julian Assange, who I was going to ask about prison. And you might say, like, well, why don't they just kill him? Because he has been, probably the single most effective person in terms of spilling Western secrets in the last generation. And the reason is because they didn't have to. They just neutralized him. They kept him locked away in the Ecuadorian embassy for 8 years, and now they have him in a high security prison in the UK, never having charged him with any or convicted him of any crime, but just he's been in prison for a decade. That's how I look at Trump as well. He was really a weak president, Tim. He dominated the news, but they did a great job with this concocted Russiagate scandal that really engulfed his presidency for 4 years. He got impeached twice. I mean, the second time was because of the January 6th stuff, but the first impeachment grew out of Russiagate, but it paralyzed the administration forever. They were under investigation from the start. And that all came out of the CIA and the FBI. And, it's not like it was completely concocted. I mean, I know this is shocking to a lot of people, but countries do interfere in each other's domestic politics. Sure. The United States more so than anybody. So, the Russians wanted to fuck with the election, just like the Iranians did, just like the Ukrainians did on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And, there were some meetings between the Trump campaign and the Russians that ordinarily would have just faded into the woodwork in the context of like billions of dollars poured into the election. Some Russian bots on Twitter and Facebook were like an infinitesimal, barely detectable presence. So they took this tiny little grain of truth and they exploded it into this completely manufactured but quite dangerous conspiracy theory, because it ratcheted up tensions between the world's two largest nuclear powers. And then you had these media outlets who, as I said before, were convinced that it was their solemn duty no longer to do journalism, but to stop Trump, which are two very different things. And they just started getting fed by the CIA like they have been for decades. This just carousel of leaks designed to harm Trump, and they just were publishing it without any critical analysis at all.
Right.
So when you say, like, why did they kill Trump? Like, they didn't need to kill Trump. they got most of what they wanted despite Trump. They successfully neutralized
why couldn't
him.
they control the way that John Brennan kind of controlled Obama? It was a very close relationship and got Obama. I think we were in 7 wars and we, had a huge drone war. Why were they not able to do that with Trump? Was it mainly personality? Did they felt that they had to neutralize him with Russiagate? Why would they not just, he seems like a guy that loves adulation. He seems like a guy, was there no other way that they could have, exacted influence on him besides, dragging the country through this 2-year, somewhat ridiculous thing?
So part of it, I do think, is personality. If you look at how Obama has navigated through life, he's always been an institutionalist. He always appeased institutional power. He was very adept at making people feel like if they connected to him, that they were doing something subversive and important, when in reality, all he was doing was aggrandizing institutions of authority. That's who Obama was. So he came into office with this huge army behind him saying he was going to change Washington. He had no interest in doing that. So it was very easy to kind of mold Obama and integrate him into this existing permanent power center. He didn't really resist. He kind of liked that. He found it appealing. So, and he got those like cerebral generals like David Petraeus and loved like special forces and like covert operations more than full scale invasions. So, they were very happy with Obama. I think it's 2 things with Trump. One is I do think like his personality, if you look at how Trump has always lived his life. I lived in New York for 15 years when Trump was, just like a celebrity billionaire real estate mogul, always on page 6 or whatever. He was born in Queens. We always had like this huge inferiority complex. He always felt justifiably like the Manhattan establishment looked down their noses at him because of how he spoke, his outer borough demeanor. And that's why he was building those huge, penises in the middle of Manhattan to show that like he wanted to live above them all. He like always had an inferiority complex, much like Richard Nixon did. And so when you have this inferiority complex, it breeds this like resentment. And when you're resentful toward institutions, you're really not looking for them to like you. You actually feel this hostility towards them because you know that they look down upon you. That's one thing. But I think the bigger part of it was the CIA and FBI's maneuvering against Trump began prior to his inauguration. It happened throughout the 2016 campaign. That was when Russiagate was born in order to help Hillary. They were openly cheering for Hillary. But the last 2 prior CIA directors, Michael Hayden under George Bush, Michael Morrell under Obama, so one Republican, one Democrat, both essentially endorsed Hillary, and the New York Times and the Washington Post both accused Trump of being a Russian agent. So this narrative came from the CIA, and Trump knew that they were trying to sabotage him from winning. So as soon as he won, the first thing he did was he turned around and fucked the CIA. And then, like, remember, one of the first things that they did was James Comey went to the Trump Tower and briefed Trump on the Steele dossier, knowing that that would then justify news outlets covering it. And that was before he was even inaugurated. So he was at war with them from the start, and they were at war with him. And I think like one of the most telling exchanges, people should go Google this if they haven't seen it, because it's like a Rosetta Stone for how American politics works. Trump being Trump, when he saw that the CIA was trying to blame Russia for his victory, which he felt, like it was kind of undermining or delegitimizing what he had achieved. So he was very angry about it, started going on Twitter and mocking them for getting Iraq wrong. Like, why the fuck should we believe the CIA when they say Russia did it, when they're the idiots who told us that weapons of mass destruction, Saddam had weapons of mass destruction? Again, things that American presidents don't say that are nonetheless true. And I think it was like 3 days before Trump was inaugurated, Chuck Schumer, the senior Democrat in Washington, went on the Rachel Maddow show. And she asked him about these tweets that she was very upset because she loves the CIA. She's very upset that Trump would like demean, the brave men and women at the CIA who keep us safe. And she asked Schumer about it. And Schumer said, leaving aside the morality of it, he thinks he's a hard-nosed businessman. But even for just as a hard-nosed businessman, it's such a stupid thing what he's doing, because everyone in Washington knows that if you fuck with the CIA, they have 6 different ways to Sunday to get back at you. And that's what they're going to do to him. He foretold the entire, as you said, soft coup.
Right.
Like, he openly admitted what you're not supposed to acknowledge.
Most people don't really know what the CIA is or what they do. I mean, my listeners do. And I think most people think the CIA goes around, keeping terrorists from flying planes into buildings, which I'm sure it is a percentage of their job. But from my understanding, the CIA is a kind of the enforcement arm of the larger, whatever you want to call it, whether it's the military-industrial complex. Some people have said it's they use the word deep state. Basically, these unelected power factions in Washington that are made up of this revolving door of corporatists and lobbyists and defense contractors and people that are involved in the extraction of natural resources and, high-level people in banking and high-level people in tech. And the CIA is sort of their muscle, so to speak. They're the agency that's able to kind of pave the way for them to do the things that they want to do. Am I wrong in my conception of what the CIA does and what their function is? Maybe their primary function.
No, it's pretty accurate. I mean, if anyone ever asked me what book should I read to understand American politics, I always encourage them to read any history of post-World War II national security state, like the Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot, or a bunch of them. Yeah, it's great. An amazing book. Because
it's the other one that's good is Are You There, Vodka? It's Me, Chelsea by Chelsea Handler, where she lays out the role of nation states in the post-Cold War paradigm.
But Chelsea Handler is my favorite foreign relations scholar. So anything
she knows more about espionage. For someone that spent as long as she did drinking margaritas, she knows a lot about Russian politics and a lot about espionage. And I commend, as do many people in my business. Many people who've spent their lives talking about their penises on stage are very good at counter espionage. I had no idea. Counterintelligence. They're very good at it.